The worst is when I start thinking about suicide and start ruminating about suicide, and they're different they're different type. There are differences. I mean, there are times when I ruminate almost in a sort of pleasant daydreaming way, sort of the way you think about going on holiday and or doing something exciting in the future, and it's just sort of like, yeah, you know, if I could kill myself, I'd be, you know, if I was dead, then I wouldn't have to think about the future. I wouldn't need to worry about this. And it's not really concrete. And then there are times when I'm really down and I'm really unhappy, like I have been the past week or two, because of I've had bad news about my physical health, and I've been thinking much more, with much more thinking about it not as a, oh, I wish I was dead, it would be wonderful if I was dead, but now thinking about it, you know what, maybe I should actually kill myself, and thinking about how I would do it and planning it, and thinking about the practicalities, and thinking about it in a much more clinical way, in a much more as opposed to it just being, you know, oh, if I was dead I would be happy, but
what's the worst feeling then? I can see that you think about death, but in terms of the experience itself,
the worst feeling is when thinking about death isn't actually the worst feeling, because it's actually a relief. If that's like something to aspire to that's like the perfect escape. The worst feeling is when I'm not suicidal, and when I'm not actively thinking about suicide as a real possibility, and I'm thinking that I'm stuck in this life, and I'm stuck with this life, and I'm stuck with these feelings of unhappiness, and it just feels like there is no escape, and if I'm not actively feeling suicidal, then it feels like there's just nowhere to turn, and there's no escaping from myself and from my feelings and from the situation I'm in, and that's when that's the worst.
That's something quite hard for me to understand. I mean, I think there's aspects of depression I can understand, but some I think we don't actually. The more I try and get in, you know, empathise with what you're saying and try to understand it. Feeling of you cannot escape, stuck. What does that feel like? I mean,
it's horrible. What does it feel like? It just feels like you're trapped. It's, you know, I have a heart condition, and there are times when I have difficulty breathing, and in particular there are times when it gets really bad, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I actually think I stop breathing, and I wake up and I can't breathe, and I'm aware that I can't breathe, and it's really frightening, and when I feel that helplessness and that feeling stuck, it's very similar to that feeling. It's very similar to that feeling of being aware that you can't breathe, and being aware that you can't, that something terrible is happening to you, and not being able to get out of that. Like when I can't breathe in a literal sense, I'm very aware. It's just like it's not for with the physical not being able to breathe. It's not for very long, but it's very frightening during that period of feeling that you're suffocating, and you're being suffocated. So it's kind of like that. It's very similar.
And I won't go into detail here at all, but the question I sometimes ask is what happened before you became depressed. And I know there are some difficult things that happened, and I don't want to go into that today. But do you see your depression about those things that happened, or is it just happened to you as depression?
It's hard to say. Well, I mean, because although I said to you that I've been depressed for this episode has been about 14 years, 15 years, with a 2-year break, and then from 2005 onwards. If I look back at my past, this isn't when it started in about 97, 98. That wasn't my first episode of depression. I'd been depressed before, and I think my first episode of depression was as a teenager, and I didn't know it was depression. But when I got diagnosed in my early 20s, I thought, oh yeah, I've had this before. I didn't know what it was. And when I got depressed in my teens, there was no significant life event that caused it. And when I got depressed in my 20s, there was something that happened, but it wasn't big enough to really justify the depression that followed. And then, as I say, and then when I started being depressed, so to answer your question, I think my life events and the traumas I've had have definitely contributed to my depression, particularly this depression. I mean, as I say, I started being depressed, and then I sort of went over the edge when something big traumatic happened. But I recognise that a lot of the time I've been depressed for no particular reason.
Starting in your teens.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'll stop the first interview there then.
Okay.
That may be okay, your point. Just check.
Sorry.